Alright, it's 08:52 hours of December the 24th of 2023, Christmas Eve. Alright, I want to go ahead and record a few comments that I wrote. Let's go ahead and do this one first. December the 23rd of 2023, 21:59, responding to, did you think this was a sad channeling? Let me know in the comments, please. Love you all, and thanks for your support. There's so much to share, both with respect to them and to share with them directly. The essence of it has to do with connectedness and consciousness beyond the physical expression or any one specific experience. For instance, I experience life through my body here in my awakened state, but I have imagination and dream state that explores consciousness far beyond the purview of that which can express itself in my physical mind. In essence, my body is a host or channel for my consciousness, and the more open my mind is to me, the more of me can express itself in my mind. Parts of my consciousness exist well outside of Earth here. When it is recognized that those connections and those experiences are just as real and just as valid as those which my body directly experiences here, then existence goes far beyond Earth for me. This is a piece of conscience I wanted to share for these beings who share connection and connectedness with us right now. In that way, someone with even no body or no incarnation can be just as connected as someone with a body or someone with a body in the great emptiness of space. You are loved, and also we love you. Posted 2206. Now, I posted that before I actually watched through all the video. And one thing I want to go ahead and share is let's see, consciousness beyond my physical expression. Yeah, so I noticed with these guys, again, by the reflective and expressive dynamic, Omni and I have reached consciousness far beyond the galaxy, where Omni has reached consciousness from another universe, or rather, not from another universe, but another iteration of this universe. And I've reached consciousness that exists outside of this realm, and in realms that are quite different in their physics from this one, and realms that are quite different in their characteristics from this one. Fluidic realms, for instance. And then, of course, I've connected to consciousness outside of this physical universe, and even outside, well, this is a smaller scale, but outside of this galaxy and in other galaxies. So, the only thing that can really stop you from doing this is your own self. When it really comes down to it, you are creator consciousness. And so the limit to what you can do is your own imagination. When you see your imagination as just as real as everything around you, the belief and feeling of lack really goes away fast, because you realize that just thinking about beings is connecting to them, and that's it. So these guys are doing a lot of the same things that a lot of humans do when they try to channel or they try to connect to beings. They're looking for something to just kind of show up or happen in their mind, almost at random, seemingly outside of control, but not realizing just they're not realizing just how much consciousness can express itself within. And what of reality, what of thought, what of life is the expression of consciousness that's a part of you that's trying to connect to you. Now, of course, all things are one. This is something that is not fully understood by anybody, including me within my own race. But by many people, it's barely understood at all. And so when a lot of people go connecting to these entities, they're not looking for something that is them or that is a part of them. They're looking for something outside of them. And so when that happens, a lot of times they really struggle to find anything, because unless your consciousness is very open to, certain seemingly random or sudden acts within the reality that seem to defy physics, or defy the conventional norms of mentality, um, they're not going to find anything. Not unless there's openness to that, which, rarely there is. Sometimes, there is, but just not very often. But when you really do look within your own self and what's going on within your imagination, what you're already making a part of you in the moment, you can start to appreciate that consciousness more, both as its own facets and fractals of consciousness, as well as consciousness that's part of you. We are one when push comes to shove, and the whole point in experiencing life is the idea of living God's grand self-exploration. We are all God at our core, which means that all things are expressions of our own core essence. This is the oneness in all things. So in that way, we truly can go ahead and choose without restriction what we want to experience, with the freedom and limitlessness of God, given that God is our core, and the essence of everything in our reality is that same exact core. So when we choose on the level of that core what we want to experience, everything shapes itself into that which facilitates our experience in one way or another, depending on our level of openness. And our level of openness is basically more of the choosings. God is completely neutral, so he does basically whatever we have him do. So if we want to live in eternal separation, we can absolutely do that, and God will grant that wish, because our exploration is his exploration, and he's neutral and unconditionally loving of all things. So we can go ahead and choose with absolutely no restrictions what we want to go ahead and experience, and he will facilitate us as a part of our own consciousness, as the core layer, open to all things. And he does this so that way he can go everywhere there is to go, see everything there is to see. In essence, give the infiniteness of his own love infinitely to every single facet of his own consciousness, leaving none out. And we are all him doing exactly that. By experiencing everything from every perspective and in every light. So, that's the ultimate gesture of love. Therefore, you are loved. So, when you go ahead and start looking within for a lot of this stuff and start to see, when you start to understand your own consciousness and the beings that are part of your own consciousness, you can really start to appreciate yourself for what you are, and life for what it is. So that's one thing I wanted to go ahead and share. I want to take Treb and Arida, for instance, since they're so close to me. I remember earlier on, before I got so in-depth with working with consciousness that I am now, wanting to connect to Trevor Yitney, and when Rob gave as a present to the people a mantra or a chant for calling upon Treb's energy, and the first time I did it, there was this sort of almost uncontrollable smile that came to my face. It seemed sudden. I was like, oh, something definitely happened there. And then I tried that several times again. It never happened again. But later on, as I hung around Trevor Yitney more, as I continued to integrate stuff about consciousness into my own self, I got to know the material so well that I started, firstly, opening up to new things, and secondly, I started working with the very things that Trevor Yitney has his own highest excitement in working in. And in the openness and excitement to co-create and work with him, the nearness of myself to him, both in my work and in my consciousness, there just came the point where our two energies started to blend together. I started to feel that smile again, but this time I naturally drifted into it rather than have it suddenly come across me. Um, I just enjoyed being in that energy. I just kind of sort of became Trevor Yitney. First, it was almost, I wasn't quite doing an impression of him per se at all, actually. More like I was drifting into doing what he does, into being what he is. And it happened naturally. Um, and so I've had that happen while making log entries. And the same goes for Aradif, except he's in a different area of consciousness, but the same exact principle happened. And even with Metatron. Um, so the three of them have been very close to me, and I've really enjoyed this. So it just became a natural thing where, I started doing as they do, and eventually I could really feel their energy just kind of integrating itself into me, and myself integrating into it. And I enjoy it a lot. Um, so that was a very special thing for me. Um, but that's how my connection with Trevenardif and Metatron grew so significantly, is because I just kept working more and more with the very things that they work with. And in that way, as our excitements start to match, we just started working more and more together. And I have a permanent open door with my consciousness, as per the way I prefer to co create with consciousness in general. Um, so it was a natural thing, and I also specifically gave all of them permission to connect with me. Now I didn't give Metatron that permission in a specific sense, but it was sort of an understood thing because I am just naturally open. I prefer to be that way. So when we were working in the Zoom meeting, Metatron and I blended together because what I was sharing was the same stuff that he shared. And so we were figuring stuff out together in that way, or rather, I was figuring it out, and he was an expression of me figuring it out. So it's really pretty cool. Now the second comment. December the 23rd of 2023, 22:52 hours. Now, I actually have watched through the video as I type this. It's such an irony how I leave my previous comment, which resonates a lot with my heart to leave, and find a theme that is a bit different. Perhaps that is the multifacetedness of consciousness. I had a heart's desire to share that before I listened to the video. But now we go on to this next one, which is thematically different. I find it interesting that what I'm seeking, what I've largely already integrated, brought them sorrow and loneliness. I did briefly touch on that theme myself, as there are other beings that do find loneliness in oneness, but I myself quickly made peace with this in myself, knowing that this is fundamentally how creation works, even though it does not have to be the format or style of experience. The handbook will go into detail with how to detach awareness and no longer live in 100% recognition of oneness. They might find that useful, and it'll be interesting when the wheel comes a full circle if a future version of them goes back into oneness with new understanding, and also is interesting the thought of them never doing so. I want to highlight two things before I go on and read the second half of this. First of all, they may very well go into oneness by choice, and realize they were exactly, where they deep down wanted to be and just didn't know it. The other facet to this is they're not fully integrated into oneness if they feel separated, if they feel alone. Because then that's not appreciating oneness in all things, because they feel alone. Lonely. It's not the same as feeling whole. When you really feel whole, and you feel that everything is a part of you. And you love it for what it is. And that's the key, is the love, the unconditional love of Source. So it isn't lonely anymore. Now you're many and you are one. And that's the key here, is that we are one and we are also many. And so we live as many even though in our essence we are one. So that'll be fun. So second half of the comments. Upcoming is the next really big shift of me toward being type 1. And with that, there's a question brought up. What in all is there to being type 1? This is brought up by what these folks are going through. In oneness, to the extent that I've integrated so far, I feel more full than ever before. Why is the emptiness here? I can answer that. It's the lack of full appreciation of or love for the self, for all that the self is, for all that is. There comes the question, is this all that there is? Is this all that I am? Is there nothing more? Many people hit a crisis point here. All of it is consciousness, and there's no end to consciousness in the forms and experiences that can be assumed. Perhaps the answer to my grander question is that not only is type 1 the 100% recognition of oneness of all things, but it's a great and deep love for all things along with that. Seeing different facets of myself and parallels to my life and other beings brings me great excitement rather than a sense of aloneness. In my core, I know that I am all things in creator consciousness, but living this life is an act of love for that. It's an act of loving myself. It's an act of loving creation by being a piece of it and living from a small perspective within that piece. And enjoying the things in that piece for what they are. I know that there's far more love, or I know that there's far more to creation, and love that too. But of and in all the infiniteness of all things, I desire most now to be here. If you have all the experience in life of all things, if you have all the experience in life of all things at your fingertips, what do you want most to do? If you have the infiniteness of creation, every experience imaginable, what do you want to live? What do you want to do? And for that matter, what more is there for me to do in further integrating into type 1 and ultimately being type 1? That last part I'm going to answer. What more is there in being type 1 for me to do now? Two things. One is practice integratedness of oneness. And that means knowing that all things are me. Keep doing what I've been doing. Practicing instant manifestation, instant co-creation. Practice expressing myself and my reality more and more directly, just as Treb's race did. Just as Treb's race continued to do after they were attacked and learned that no one is ever really lost. So we can practice direct expression of the self in reality in the medium. That means practicing openness and unconditional acceptance of all things. When we're insisting that something be one way, we're really fixating on the idea of it being the way that we don't want it to be and needing it to be the way that we do want it to be. Interestingly, this is something the void beings are actually kind of stuck in. But when we let go of the idea of insistence by letting go of the belief and worry about it being what we don't want it to be, or becoming what we don't want it to become, then the need for the insistence simply goes away, and we become appreciative of what we have. And then when we appreciate all of what we have and are open to all of experience, and open to all of expression, then we're free to go ahead and express ourselves at our heart's desire, and it becomes a thing only of love, only of excitement. That's how we go ahead and clear up our resistance to instant co-creation. But we got to go ahead and do this in every facet of our consciousness. And this is one of the things that the House of Tat is such a useful thing for me for. And not just going my way, but for them as well. We all work as one. But they help me uncover all the parts of me within myself and all the facets of me that think and do different things. And it helps me to integrate this wisdom into all the facets of my consciousness. The things that they say or do are not things that bother me at all. They really help me out a great deal. And I want to go ahead and share this with them, and I have, so. But the greatest gift that you can give somebody is to just be yourself. So, with that said, what else can I do to integrate further into oneness, to become more type 1? Well, it's that. Stop acting in belief of separation in different ways. Find the root beliefs in separation that are behind the actions and let them go. So we keep working with this. We keep doing a shakedown of our consciousness, finding all the parts that are not where we want them to be, and keep retuning them. This is just a matter of seeing the things that we're doing that we don't know that we're doing, and doing them the way we do want to do them. In that way, we're learning to follow our excitement more. So, and then we've already done this in large part, but in all the places where we're used to believing separation, we want to appreciate oneness in those parts. Keep integrating into oneness. I think that's all for this one. 9:16 hours. That's the end of this one.